Do you ever notice how everybody is right, but yet no one agrees with anybody else? Like, everybody is absolutely right without uh, any question of it being an absolute truism and a fact that they're exactly right. Yet, when you go on like any comment threads or anything like that, everybody or a huge number of people, let's just say, without using extremes like everybody or no one, or but a lot of people are in fairly sharp ideological disagreement with one another, but they all think they're right. And the problem is that very few of them are even coming from a place that's anywhere near first principles. Very few of them are coming from a place of actual logic and reason. Most of them are appearing to come from a place of logic and reason, while they simply, proclaim truisms and proclaim things that people are supposed to take as gospel and fact because they've been repeated so many times. For instance, this morning I was hearing someone talk about Che Guevara and how it was assumed that he was a communist. And it was a truism that he was a communist. Basically, any of the leaders, including probably Bishop Romero in El Salvador, basically anyone in the Central Americas or any of the Central American countries, South American countries, that through the 20th century, particularly from the 50s up until the 80s and 90s, when they were being brutally tortured and raped and pillaged and completely psychologically broken and basically just razed completely. The whole land, all the land down there was razed and flattened, and they planted banana and pineapple and cocaine farms down there. And in the process, they had to break the population. And of course, people complained. Here come these white Vikings from the West with their ships, telling everybody that your agrarian lifestyle is coming to an end. We're going to rape and pillage your towns and your villages. We're gonna fuck your children and your wives, and literally, and we're going to kill your men, and we're going to burn your lands down, and we're going to repopulate the land, and we're going to enslave you to grow our pineapples and bananas and kiwi fruits, and Dole will come down here and set up and just completely subjugate all of you. And in the process, of course, there were several men who came into power and or came to be respected by their people because they had the balls to stand up to this arrogantly imperialistic force that was really destructive, obviously, to their people. So, of course, the arrogant imperialistic force, namely the West, just simply slandered them and called them commies or terrorists or whatever it is. But really, they're just people that reserve their inalienable right as human beings to defend their right to pursue liberty and happiness and all the things that are known by all human beings to be inalienable rights. But then you have these morons out there that will just, I'm sorry, but I have to use epithets because they really are morons. You have these morons out there that will just, bark off about how, Fidel Castro was a communist. Fidel Castro would have fucking been dead right from the beginning, if he wasn't a fucking tool for the United States to be used to seduce and subjugate his own people for the sake of saving his own ass and saving his people's ass. And if a country like America comes up to a budding young idealist like Fidel Castro and a young intellectual and says, look, we can either kill you and completely destroy your entire fucking country and kill everybody in it, or you can save yourself and save some of your people by selling out, working with us to pose as some revolutionary. Everyone will buy it. You can, have a nice lifestyle. We'll get you the best of the best, and you can be a cult of personality against us, and you can be, a boogeyman for us, so that we can justify, making Cuba a forbidden place that we can do all kinds of shady shit, in. We can set up, illegal prison camps. We can do extraordinary rendition into Cuba and just hide prisoners of war there for indefinitely and just do all kinds of shady shit. All the while we use you as this boogeyman that justifies it. So what would you rather do? Have us kill you now and kill everyone in Cuba until the last man is standing and begs for his life, or would you rather just realize that we could do that right now and just save yourself and sell out and for your own good and for the people's good, just work with us here, So I'm pretty sure that that's what Fidel Castro had done. If he was a real radical like Bishop Romero was, for instance, in El Salvador, he would have been fucking killed. Bishop Romero was definitely assassinated by death squads in El Salvador that were trained by the Central Intelligence Agency and other intelligence groups in the United States government, namely at the famous School of the Americas at Fort Benning, Georgia, where they trained death squads basically to, kill millions and millions and millions of Central Americans. They worked with the Israeli Mossad. They worked with Pakistani. They worked with intelligence all over the world. Naming individual ones is kind of almost naive and stupid to even do it. There's hundreds of different intelligence agencies and countries that they worked with in Fort Benning, Georgia, at the School of the Americas, and to train death squads to basically humiliate and subjugate and dominate populations. And it's part of history. It's inarguable. Let's put it that way. You can't argue with that history. It's there. It's documented by thousands of sources, witnesses. Okay? The point is, Fidel Castro was not a communist. He wasn't an enemy of the United States. He wasn't an enemy of the West. Just like the entire communistic system wasn't an enemy of the West. The entire communistic system, including the Bolsheviks, including Trotsky and Lenin, were put in place by European bankers in order to create a pretext for the United States to go all through Southeast Asia, South America, and everywhere else and completely imperialize those countries and turn them into fucking slave farms for the West. All we had to do was install a couple of dictators in Russia, claim that all of these countries were going to be overtaken by Russia, and then use that as a pretext to go in and save all of the people by raping and killing them, literally, from the communists. We did it in Vietnam. We did it in all through South and Central America. We did it in Laos and Cambodia. We did it in everywhere where we've been. Any low intensity or straight conflict. We did it in Korea. Starting basically with Korea and the Red Scare in the 50s, on through the 60s and 70s and 80s when communism was still the boogeyman, and then the wall was torn down, and then terrorism became the boogeyman. Everybody knows this. In all intellectual circles, it's very well known. Everyone knows it. It's such a blatant, well-known fact that it's not even debatable. But yet you have these fucking morons, or, hired commissars, or hired propagandists, or hired disinformation agents, or hired shills, or whatever you want to call them, coming out on YouTube or everywhere, just saturating information in the world, just telling everybody that, mainstream history is real, and the way that they tell it in mainstream history books is real. That, Trotsky and Lenin really orchestrated a revolution by themselves and overthrew a country and instituted this evil thing called communism, which wasn't even communism. A fucking kibbutz in Israel is communism. The shit that B.F. Skinner was talking about, and, Emerson and Thoreau was communes are communism. Totalitarian fascism and socialism is not fucking communism. And that's what, you had in Russia. You did not have communism. There's a fucking word applied to totalitarian socialism to basically destroy the idea of actual communism, which is really what human beings are hardwired to do to some extent in certain times. When times are tough, they tend to, get together and cooperate and live communally and pool their resources. It's a natural instinct, communism. What Russia had, what China has, is not fucking communism. It's not communism. It's totalitarian socialism. Socialism with an iron fist. It's not communism. Okay? So by labeling it communism, it's double-pronged strategy. 2 prongs. Number 1, you get to dirty up the name communism. So now every time everyone hears the word communism, it's evil. Number 2, you get to now say that communism is a boogeyman, and any country that is possibly in the sphere of Russia's influence, we can now invade, rape women, cut their bellies open and let their guts fall out, rape children, literally, kill men, peel men's skin off, hang them upside down from a tree and behead them, take a bunch of people sitting around a table and behead them and put their heads on pikes in front of them and fill up a bowl in the middle of the table with blood, hang a pregnant woman upside down, cut her uterus out, and, put it over her head and tie her uterus around her head with her intestines, and stuff like that, because communism, you know what I mean? So you listen to fucking morons like, Sandman and other people like that, are still have their head so far up their ass that they, are trying to tell everybody that, communism was a real boogeyman, and communism really was a problem, and Fidel Castro was a communism, and Che Guevara was a communism, and was communist. Yeah, Che Guevara. Yeah, it's basically, that's really what they might as well be saying that Che Guevara was a communism, because that's as fucking stupid as it sounds, really. It's that stupid at this point. So even though I made a mistake by saying that, that's really, it's that stupid. The guy in Venezuela, what was his name? Ended up, everybody had a house by the time he left office, but he was evil. It's just fucking horseshit. They fuck the economy up and then blame it on them and try to say that it was all his fault, and it's all orchestrated from behind the scenes, from the Import-Export Bank and the Bank of International Settlements and the World Bank and all of the loans that they give these austerity loans that they give these countries, and tell them that they have to do this, and this, or else they're not going to get any more loans, and also they're going to have trade sanctions, and they're going to be fucked over if they don't play ball. One thing leads to another, and they end up playing ball, but then in the process, they destroy the economy, and then they blame it on the guy that they assassinated. It's perfect for them. They get away with it all the time, and you have these fucking morons buying all into it and buying the American propaganda line, but it's all a lie. And so it's just really, there's just so much bullshit out there that you could fill up a fucking house with the amount of paper that you'd need to dispel all the propaganda and all the bullshit. But will anyone ever do it? Probably not. Is humanity gonna probably live for the next several hundred years with 98% of the population being completely brainwashed and having no idea about the history of the world, the actual history of the world, and the actual nature of human beings, and be able to make all of their decisions based on actual history and the actual nature of human beings, and actual because the only way you're going to ever be able to grow and function as a human being is to actually have a good idea of what human beings really are, what they've done, what they are capable of, what they can do, what they have done, what they do in certain situations. If you go through life thinking that all Americans are bound to absolute integrity, and all of our wars and violence is inspired by the most pure righteousness, and all of our actions are completely righteous, and we are not war criminals in any way. We never have been, and any of our engagement tactics in war are always always considering the highest level of ethics. We would never, breach any of those, understood rules between, sides where people might, have their, toenails, pulled off with a pair of pliers, and or their balls cut off and shoved down their throat and choked with their own balls. Stuff like that. Americans would never do that. But, when you go through life thinking that stuff actually, only happens by bad guys in Bruce Willis movies, then you're just fucking stupid. And you go through life not really knowing that, war veterans that live in your neighborhood, Vietnam veterans, probably saw things that, are things that you really only would probably see in a Hollywood depiction of a Italian mob movie. Baseball bats to the face, or torture and things like that supposedly only greaseball Italians do. Sorry, but I don't. That's how Hollywood depicts them, right? I don't think that Italians are greaseballs. I'm saying that's how Hollywood likes people to think of them, right? But it's a lie, right? So that type of people go through life with all of these misconceptions, and to the point where just about everything that they think, every touchstone, every single thought that grounds their mind, in every single corner of their mind, all of the different reference points that they have, and the psychological associations they have, are all erroneous. We have people out there, I would say probably over 90% of them, where a huge percentage of all of their psychological associations and a lot of their conceptions are completely in error. And is that a travesty? I don't know. I think so. I think it's fucking scary, actually. I find these people dangerous. I find them to be dangerous. I have nothing in common with them. I don't want them around my children. I really don't. It's a grave situation. People don't get it. They don't see. There's, hello, but what am I going to do? All I can do is this. I'm just trying to, I know I've said fuck a couple times, but, just don't kill the messenger. The delivery might not be as smooth as it could be, but, just take what I'm saying for what it is, and, ignore the delivery. It's really secondary to the actual ideas, after all. Isn't it? Maybe not. Maybe you're a fucking moron. I don't know. I don't really care, actually. But I'm just trying to, maybe reach four or 8 or 9 people in this godforsaken land. So anyway, good night, if possible, and Godspeed.